Hiya, welcome to Space Brains. Tonight it's episode 99 and we are talking about science fiction film, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Hi, and welcome to Space Brains, the show where we watch sci-fi movies and then talk about what was good and what was great. I'm Surrey, and this is Mark.
Hiya, it's episode 99.
99?
And we're talking about science fiction film, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. In this episode, we'll reveal what we, as Space Brains, thought about the film, the ins and outs of narrative, a bit about film language, plus a nice deep dive into a specific piece of science that the filmmakers are proposing. Everything Everywhere All at Once was written and directed by Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, I believe, or commonly known as the Daniels.
The Daniels. Why not? Hey.
There's two Daniels.
If you haven't seen this film, you better turn back now because this is your spoiler warning. Warning. We're going to go into everything, every sausage-fingered waving moment of this film.
Yes. And
then tune back in and listen to what we have to say because hopefully it's exciting.
I hope so, yeah. Hopefully you do tune back in. That's the main thing.
Yes, it's good. We've got some good stuff to say.
We are. So, and if you haven't seen this film, why not? Go watch it. It's great.
Go watch it. It's won a stack of awards.
It has. It's blitzed everyone across the world the last 12 months. So Everything Everywhere All at Once is about a middle-aged Chinese immigrant to the US who's swept up into an insane adventure, and it is insane.
It is cray-cray.
In which she alone can save existence by exploring other universes and connecting with the lives she could have led, including sausage fingers.
There is a connection between this film and a previous one we have reviewed.
Interesting. So what was your number one takeaway from sausage? I mean, Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Number one takeaway from Everyone Ever All at Once is this connection with the previous film. We did a film called The Subject Unknown.
Oh, yeah.
If you remember that. What was the main name of that? Like Infinitum. I was thinking Infini, but that's that.
No, that's another one.
Yeah, the Australian one. No, Infinitum, Subject Unknown, which, to refresh everyone, if you haven't heard the episode, it was a film that was created during COVID lockdown. Husband and wife team filmed entirely on an iPhone, and it explored similar themes to this one of multiple dimensions and timelines of the same person's life. The connection is beyond that, though. In the end of Infinitum, we discovered that the character we've been following was leading the worst life
that's right.
of all of us. And she was the one who was never found, who never succeeded, which was a horrifying terror, if you ask me. And, of course, in Everything Everywhere All at Once, our main character is, played by Michelle Yeoh, is leading also the worst existence of all of her opportunities. And I really loved this different view on it, which is that, because Infinitum was definitely not a hopeful film.
No.
This one, however, is the hopeful film. It's like, because she was the worst, she was the best. Because she had so many different things that she had tried and failed at.
Yeah.
There were so many different things, so many different lives she could tap into to gain power from. And I found that a really inspiring metaphor for not feeling defeated just because you haven't succeeded.
Yeah.
It's the old, who is it? Thomas Edison, I think it's like, he's tried 1,000 different light bulbs, not one of them's worked. And so he says, well, that's useless. And he says, no, I found 1,000 different ways it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I only have to find one way that it does.
That's right.
And this film, that's what I really got from this film, is that even if you think you're living your worst life, that just means you've got so much ahead.
Yeah.
And above and around you.
Yeah. And I think you said it, and I agree, it is a hopeful film.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what it is. So it's not really a warning or an experiment. I think it is just a pure joy, hopeful sort of story. It's a very traditional, although it is Everything Everywhere all at once, and the film really does throw everything at the audience in terms of all of these parallel universes, and even the way that they visually show that to us with like this enormous amount of shots from all sorts of dimensions and things all at once. At the end of the day, it is just that real hopeful story of someone that hasn't had much go right for her, and because that's the case, she is the hero. She's the hero that then has to succeed, leaning on the fact that her life hasn't been that great, really.
Well, she starts at rock bottom.
So, yeah,
the only way is up. You know,
the only way is up.
When
right.
when you've been knocked on your back,
yep,
you can only see the sky.
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. She starts at rock bottom, but she even goes deeper. Really.
Oh yeah,
it goes further. It gets worse.
Literally becomes a rock.
Yeah, that's right.
The rock dimension.
The rock dimension. So, yeah, and there's an interesting thing with that is that that scene was supposed to not have any subtext, as in it was just the rocks.
Yeah.
That was in the script, and Michelle's her name, isn't it? The lead actor, lead actor. She actually was the one that said no, they need to talk. They need to actually talk to each other. So they added that in. So postscript. So yeah, so it is. I think her world gets worse. It's the same. You know, this is the hero's journey, this film, to a T, really. It's another example of it being done well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. Normally we'd use the 16-beat structure from Save the Cat, which also works for this film, absolutely.
It does.
But we should probably do some hero's journey stuff to sort of contrast the 4 stages of the 7 steps in 4 stages or whatever is the hero's journey is, yeah.
Yeah, but, I mean, it does. You're right. She starts at rock bottom. It gets worse for her. You know, the journey. She has to go on a journey to really discover who she is. She's tested to the limits, and during that, all of her past is dragged up. And realistically, the way for her to succeed is to realize what strength she did have at the start. So it's a great film, this one, and it's a great example of that, you know, taking the audience on a really unique visual journey, but based on that narrative structure that we all know works. So it's a great one in that way. So why haven't you seen it? Well, you should have seen it by now.
Yeah, you're about to hear all about it, so there you go.
I mean, this film came out in 2022. As we said, it's won heaps of awards over last year. Have you just seen it for the purpose of our podcast, or had you seen it before that?
No, I saw it on purpose because I'd heard about it. I saw some ads for it.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit of a fan of Michelle. I've watched a number of her appearances in Hong Kong films, and this is definitely a Hong Kong style film. There's the humour in it is distinctly Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And I sorted out and watched it. It did get a little bit bizarre for my wife as she was watching it with me.
Yep.
But I laughed out loud in numerous moments in this. The rock scene was one of them.
Yeah.
Which I'll try not to go into it at least.
Yeah.
But yes. And so I watched it because I heard it was quite good.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised it won some awards because it's one of these films. It managed to, because we've watched a couple of films, let's say Gant Zero, which is this anime Japanese film, which it was just, you watch it and you go, this is quite, from a Western point of view, it's quite bizarre.
Yeah.
Possibly, and I can't speak for Japanese people, obviously, but possibly less bizarre for them because they've probably seen multiple incarnations. But maybe Gant Zero was just a little bit too far off.
Yep.
Whereas then you watch this one here, which has definitely got that Hong Kong weirdness to it. Which, I spent many a Saturday night watching the Hong Kong cult films on SBS.
Yep.
And then, but they managed to pull it in with this Hollywood sensibility and using some of the tropes and ideas that Hollywood has established through The Matrix. This film owes a lot to that.
Yeah.
And so I was able to see that this film is definitely going to win attention because it's different enough to feel fresh, but recognisable enough that it wasn't going to alienate audiences.
Yeah. And I think, you can have absurd films as well, like even in the West, and someone like David Lynch films, Eraserhead, Twin Peaks, and Mulholland Drive, and a whole bunch of other really interesting films. And there's other filmmakers like David Lynch. He's just probably one of those ones that sort of sticks out a bit. And his narrative style and his shooting style and even the quirkiness involved in his films deviate from the Western narrative. So like Gantz Zero, another good example there from Japan. But if you take like a Western filmmaker, David Lynch, but a lot of his films are this absurd kind of genre where there's moments that don't make sense. And as an audience, we need to decide whether we can go with it or whether that's like too offensive for us.
Yeah.
And there was something I also learned when I went through film school is there's kind of like, they call it the audience triangle. And so if you took a Hollywood film, it would be in the middle of a triangle, like right in the middle. And what they mean by that is it's just kind of all the common tropes that we're used to, the hero's journey, boy meets girl, boy doesn't like girl, girl doesn't like boy, and we kind of know that. And that's where the audience, the generic storytelling works. Not saying whether it's good or bad, it's just literally that's like, and if you look at that part of the triangle, that's the largest part. So the largest audience likes that. However, you can go to all the points of the triangle, and I'm not going to remember exactly, there was sort of a reason why there was 3 points as well. But I think maybe one point was narrative and one was like genre and one's like, the style or something. And the idea is that, of course, the closer you get to a triangle, what happens is the edges get closer and closer. And that was symbolic for the audience getting smaller and smaller until you get to the point where you've got like 0 audience members. And so a film like this is quite interesting because I think narrative-wise, although it seems a bit crazy and out there, the narrative is very clearly, the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Like it really ticks all those boxes. You said the Blake Schneider stuff as well. Like, but if you took the hero's journey, I think you could literally tick those boxes in this film.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though it's a story we haven't collectively seen on big American or, Western stories, like a Chinese middle-aged immigrant in an unhappy marriage. She's very unaspiring at the start of this story, and so it's not the traditional, white guy going to the office, is it? So I think they sort of disguised the narrative really well, and they talked about a topic here that's really interesting as well, like an immigrant, and they discussed some of those themes in this film. But then what they did in the absurd way, get more closer to one of the pointy ends of the triangle, was the style and the visuals and the look and the, all these multiple universes playing out, the costumes. Oh my God. The costumes. So actually, I don't know. Did this film win a costume Oscar or something? I mean, surely it should have.
I stopped counting all the ones it won. But
I should have probably looked at that a bit closer, but that was something that to me is a standout of this film is the costumes. It's just incredible. That attention to detail in the costumes. Yeah, so I mean, in that way, it's a bit absurd. There's sausage fingers and these other things that happen. Quite, abstract and blown away. It's the old, we're in a circus and it's all the freaks are on display. But realistically, broken down, it's a very traditional structure. So I think they've done really clever in that you can't help but watch this and cheer on our protagonist. By the time you get halfway through the story, you want to see her succeed, like we do Neo in The Matrix, and hoping that she kind of can see how strong she is as a character. But at the same time, there's all this absurd visuals going on. So, that's what did blow me away from this film.
Yeah, it was quite the journey. It was, as I said, it became a bit much for my wife.
Yeah.
She prefers a slightly more grounded film.
Yeah.
What did we watch the other night? Is that new one by Jordan Peele, Nope. It's just come out on Netflix.
Yeah, right.
So we took the opportunity. I'd recommend it.
Yep.
At least 1 or 2 thumbs up. We might do it in a future episode.
Yeah.
I think it's worth doing. It's good. In fact, I was going to say, from the point of view of creating a sci-fi film that's gripping and does everything you need to do, but has a budget in mind.
Yeah.
It fits that bill perfectly. If you gave it more money, it wouldn't have been able to do anything more.
That's interesting, isn't it?
And it didn't need a lot of money to start with. I mean, reasonable amount of money. Yeah, there was millions of dollars involved.
Yeah.
But it was more like the $10 million, $20 million mark rather than the $80 million, $150 million mark. you couldn't have done anything with the more money except maybe get bigger named actors in it, which wouldn't have improved the story. And this film here, I think that it is, not as grounded as Nope or The Godfather. And so it can lose some actors, some audience. So you're talking about heading towards these corners. Yeah. Clearly, this isn't purely in the middle. No. But I think it does overlap enough that there were enough people to carry it through.
Yeah. And I mean, as I mentioned as well, I think the theme, the diversity theme that's happening, that we're seeing come out of especially Hollywood, that we are seeing stories from other points of view, not just the white middle-aged American dude. Here we've almost got Chinese immigrant, middle-aged, aging as well. Actually, she's probably over middle-age, I suppose, is her character. Same with her husband, and she's the central protagonist. She's not a young, good-looking white man. And so, this is part of a bit of a diversity shift coming out of Hollywood as well. So they kind of are hitting something that's a little bit off the normal sort of mark, you know? And that's what's happening. But these guys are hitting that. The Daniels as well. I think I said it to you last time. Have a previous film with them is that Swiss Army Man, starring Daniel Radcliffe, who plays the dead floating body that saves the guy from an island or whatever. He's located on an island, and again, that's quite an absurd story, that we have this character.
It departs from ordinarity.
Yeah.
Ordinarality.
But it still is it's kind of still a pretty traditional narrative. A guy gets stuck and he has to get off, this island and is he going to survive? It's the person lost in the wilderness. But what's absurd is that, he uses a dead body to do it,
Yeah, and instead of... Because Castaway, he has Wilson, his volleyball, that he talks to and sort of helps him through things. I mean, this is no different. It's a little bit more absurd. Yeah. Because you've got this corpse that is embodied with intelligence,
it's interesting. And again, that could be something that you could imagine some people turning off that, watching that.
It's too silly. It's like, it doesn't make any sense.
This doesn't actually,
Is he a zombie? Like what? Like, no, it's a metaphor. Diddly diddly doo.
Yeah, so these Daniels obviously like to push it, and I know they've done some music video clips that have put them in favour with a lot of, creatives out there and musicians, because they've done some pretty absurd ideas and weird music clips. So go online and check out some of their work. Obviously, they're going to have probably big things from here because of the success of this film. I would imagine they'd be able to pitch their next idea to quite a few people after winning the Oscars, etc. So what is anything you're up to yourself, Surrey, sci-fi wise or creative wise?
Well, foolishly, I spoke to you at length about this prior to recording, but I'll repeat it again here. I've been playing
probably a bit quicker.
I've been playing with the AI. So we all know that OpenAI
has... Just playing with AI.
Yeah,
this is what Surrey does in his free time.
ChatGPT 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And people are saying it's going to replace
humans,
people.
Out of jobs, people.
And it's like... and I played with it and I looked and realised it's not... It will remove work, but to say it's going to displace people, I think, is wrong.
Yeah.
Because what it really does is it's an automation tool which takes drudgery out of work. Woo-hoo. So you could imagine if you're a copywriter for a advertising firm, you would normally have to write copy, and the process of that, it probably looks something along the lines of brainstorm a couple of ideas, write some generic copy that makes sense, sit on it for a little bit, look over it and then re-edit it and then take it to other people. And, there's this whole process involved. ChatGPT can produce that first ideas list very quickly, as quickly you can say, give me some ideas about how to sell baked beans. Bang, it'll give you as many as you say. You say, give me 10 ideas. Mm-hmm. And then you say, okay, write some ad copy as if you're selling a tin of baked beans to kids. And it'll just bang. And it's like, it's a bit generic. Like people who are trying to say that this GPT thing is intelligent, they clearly have not used it much, because on first blush, it seems pretty clever. And then as soon as you start digging and trying to get it to do things, you realise that you're having to do a lot of prompting and instructing and manipulation. And then you end up with text, which is, good-ish. It's fine.
Yeah.
You're not going to win awards. You're not going to write everything everywhere all at once using ChatGPT. But the thing is, that's the boring, slow bit of your writing, is writing that initial draft, that sort of expression of some idea. And then it's a matter of going, okay, well, that's much better. Now I'm going to improve it. And you go, it's really inspired my creativity, which, bang, that's where you do, that's your paid work. That's what you get paid for as I use the example of a copywriter. Yeah. As a copywriter, you don't get paid to come up with the generic, bland marketing words. No. You get paid because you can take that and you can just change it a little bit, add a bit of a comma, choose a few careful words, add the right pun in, just do it just right so that it actually, to use the phrase, it pops. Like you read it and you go, oh, that's cool. ChatGPT doesn't produce, oh wow, responses. It produces, oh, that's pretty interesting for a computer to produce. Yeah, and that's what I've been doing with it. So I've used it. You'll see it on, if you jump onto filmfestival.spacebrains.com.au and you check out the latest news, you'll find there's I think I've uploaded the flyer or the program, and it's got some background artwork. That's AI generated. Right. Flyer I'm having printed now to hand around to local businesses is likewise this AI generated artwork. It took me a few goes to find one that was good, but it's, it literally is I wrote a text because I'm not very good at drawing, and I could have gone onto something like Fiverr or Airtasker or something, and paid $30 for someone to come up with something. Yep. But this was just me typing a sentence, astronaut eating popcorn, watching a movie in space, 70s retro style. Yeah. And I did a few iterations of that, changed a couple words around just to sort of change the emphasis.
What happened? Yeah.
And I got one and went, oh, that will do nicely.
There we go.
So I've been playing with AI, and it's definitely going to remove the drudgery from your work. If you're clever enough to find some way to have it automate what you're doing, you're going to find boring hours of your life disappeared.
If you're that guy in the movies who has to write like reports for a boss, I'm never too sure what job that is.
Yeah,
but like the guy who has to write reports.
Make sure that report is done by Friday.
Done by Friday. I've never understood. I don't know what report would they want from them. If that's you, I reckon you could get ChatGPT to do that for you.
Oh, absolutely.
And your boss wouldn't really notice.
Oh yeah, and I've used it. I've put pages of my book in and asked. I've said, hey, chat, pretend you're an excellent editor of science fiction and fantasy novels, and come up with some grammatic and stylistic suggestions for this. And I've pasted in pages of my work, and it's come up with like between sort of 3 and 5 changes to suggest. And I've looked at them and gone, it's fresh eyes. It's good. Like this is saving me a lot of time. Like normally I'd do all the writing and then I'd laboriously read it out loud and record myself reading it out loud.
Yeah, that's a good trick.
And then, you very quickly discover where that doesn't... Yeah, but I say very quickly, but, you're reading a 70,000 word manuscript. There's nothing very quick about that.
And it does take time.
So, but copy and paste a bit into this ChatGPT and you can flick through a couple of chapters, in half an hour and get back... Each page you'll get back, 3 to 5 suggestions on how to... improve it, make it better, whatever.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
So that's what I'm doing. AI, it's my future.
Yeah, good.
And yourself, how are you going with your creativity?
Yeah, well, it's just at the moment I'm on the page really, so just writing without AI. But just writing away short scripts, and the plan is obviously also I've spoken about previously this low budget feature. So when there's a little bit more time, probably when the Spacebrains Festival, which we'll talk about in a moment, gets a bit closer, I might have a little bit more time to really dive deeper into the feature.
You should definitely get Chat to try some of your dialogue.
Yeah.
Because if you give it your character one, you say you give them a bit of a character description of their who they are, how they talk.
How they will talk.
And then you be the other character and talk to them.
Yeah.
And you might get some interesting...
That's an interesting idea.
Interesting sort of... I'll say natural dialogue because ChatGPT has been trained on, lots of text of natural dialogue and things.
Cool.
So
yeah, always worth
it. It might be like a a read through, a table read.
Yeah, table read.
Effectively.
For sure. So, yeah, I've just been writing, really, as much as I can. Yeah, which is great.
Oh, good. I can't wait to see.
No, it's coming. It's coming when there's a little bit more, I think, once we get past the festival for this year. So, and speaking of the festival. Yeah, we've booked places. People were coming. Tickets are on sale.
So we're going to screenings at the Reading Cinema in Mandurah.
Yep.
The workshops are at the Watso, which is just across the road.
Yeah.
Watso is a shared working space. They've got a boardroom there. It's going to be there. So the reason we have the boardroom this year is we've got 2 big hands-on practical workshops.
We do.
So we've got the podcasting one, which we'll be doing. You'll actually get to see, I don't know, with that, depending on how many people turn up, you record a bit, see it edited, see how you actually then, save it, produce a podcast, and where you're going to put it.
Yeah.
So if you want to know about that, and the writing one, we've got Stephen Dedman. He's a teacher of writing, a writer of writing. He's an editor of numerous science fiction magazines.
He's got a massive, extensive
He's done a lot for decades and decades. He's going to take the lucky participants through a writing exercise for science fiction. So that's going to be awesome.
Yep.
And we have a special guest flying in.
We do, all the way from sunny Queensland, as they say, feature filmmaker Luke Sparks. So we've had him on the show previously. He's a science fiction filmmaker and also probably drama or gangster, I think is his latest film that's coming out. Is a bit more like that, apparently. But he just came off that with Leo Barry and Sam Neill. So, we're talking... Rachel Griffiths, which is also, she's also been in his occupation films, or film, the last one I know she was in. But very excited to get him in the room, and he's going to be delivering, a 30-minute keynote speech. There's probably an opportunity there to ask him a question or two, and that will lead us into the short film festival side of things, and we'll follow that by, a nice, quick, entertaining award ceremony for the winners.
Yes. Hopefully, again, we can get some of the filmmakers there to personally receive these trophies.
Yep.
That worked out really well.
If you are a filmmaker, it might be almost too late by the time this goes to air, but
you still
I'm pretty sure
still have about 10 days or so when this one goes to air.
I think it's the end of April. The film deadline. So we're really in that last part of submitting to the festival.
We just got a submission yesterday.
We did, didn't we? So, there's still a bit of time, but you're cutting it fine. So get it in there. Get the editing all done, polish that music and...
Polish that turd. Get it in.
That's right, get it in. Who are we talking about? I mean, last-minute university assignments, you've got all the way to that last minute, but, things go wrong, so make sure you get it in on time.
Get it in.
We'd rather have a look at it, and then we'll be sitting down and watching them all, which is exciting.
Oh, that'll be a marathon.
Yeah, will be. It was last time, and I think we're looking at probably a pretty similar amount of entries again.
Yeah, it's about 50.
Yeah, which is awesome. It's a really good chain, really good array of science fiction films. So I thoroughly enjoyed watching them last time. So look forward to doing it again.
Tickets are now available.
Grab a ticket.
You check out filmfestival.spacebrains.com.au.
Yep.
That they're on Humanitics. If you jump on a Humanitics and search for Space Brains Film Festival, you'll find our event.
Yeah, you'll find it really easy. So, and all the links are on our socials and, as Surrey just said, on the website. So check it out. Come on down.
Yes, there you go. So let's get into the plot. Let's see how this film hangs together, some of the interesting points that we might want to make in terms of narrative, lighting and structure, and the way that this film has been lovingly crafted.
It has, and it has. It's got a lot of love in it.
There's some lighting in this here. There's sound editing. Sound is very interesting in this one.
Especially the rocks.
Yes, the rocks and the way it's cut together. There's a lot of fast cuts. There's some long, slow bits. It's good.
Yeah.
We'll get straight into it. So give us a bit of a brief rundown of this film.
So we've got Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. I believe the Daniels are behind this, wrote and directed this film. Again, it's one of those stories that they tried to pitch to a lot of people that said no. And eventually they kind of, I think A24 was the production house behind this one. It got released in early 2022, and it's really had one of those massive success stories at the box office, quite a decent return, on it. And I know it's had one of those, it's hard because I think it was on Amazon maybe before it even had a cinema release. So like it
certainly
kind of
in Australia, it was
definitely in Australia.
Cinema in some places in Australia,
Yeah, it didn't have
nothing
a major
mainstream.
one. No.
And then we had an Amazon release.
Yeah.
And now I think almost certainly it's going to get a mainstream release.
And that's just because of, the Oscars and the other accolades that have come kind of pouring in for it. So, it had a budget of around $14 to $20 million, so pretty modest, and has so far had a return of about $137 million. So quite a good success. You mentioned Jordan Peele. He's another one of these guys with Get Out, very low budget. No one really wanted to, produce it. And, that film just totally set him up. Get Out won an Oscar, and I think him and his production company made something like, $300 million or something. So it enables him to go and make Nope and other films that he's doing.
I recommend Nope. I think that's a good one to get into.
So, the Daniels will, I would imagine, come back with something pretty fast and pretty cool as well. I also saw a lot of them and the editor, a lot of these special effects, they sat down and did themselves. They really sat there and they watched YouTubes on how to do some of these special effects and apply them and spend the painstaking time and effort to get it there, So, really quite interesting that the level of detail and care in this film, and I think it does show in that end product. We mentioned Michelle Yeoh. She plays Evelyn. We have Stephanie Ha plays Joy, the daughter. Ki Ho Kwan, might remember him from Indiana Jones.
Yeah, right. The Temple of Doom.
Yeah, as the little kid.
Goonies.
And Goonies as well. And he's just had one of these really romantic, he's going to be a poster child for never give up on your dreams, really. Yeah, and he says it because he did basically gave up on acting in his 20s. And the little snippet I saw a couple of months ago was him saying that he turned 50 and he was kind of like, he said to his wife, oh, maybe I should just give it one more go. Like maybe, I haven't done it for a long time, but maybe I should give it another go. And he said something to his wife like, I don't want to be 60 and have not tried.
Yeah.
And so obviously he's tried and he's come out the other side, Oscar winner. So you kind of can't get much, boy does good story, can you, from that?
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You'd recognise Michelle from... she was a sword master in Boss Level.
Boss Level that we did, yeah.
She's also then the evil captain from the evil universe in Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she's also... What was the other one she was also recently in? I can't remember now.
I mean, she's got an amazing career. Like, she's had this huge career, hasn't she? But this film is just the one that's the trajectory.
She's in like a 1,000 with Jackie Chan, and then also starring on her own in Hong Kong prior to coming to Hollywood. Yeah. She is a Hong Kong immigrant to America herself. Anyway.
Yeah, and Jenny Slate play as Debbie the dog mum, the laundromat customer, and Henry Shun Jr. as Chad, the chef. Which is quite cool, the chef guy. And James Hong, who, I see this guy and he's been in lots and lots of films, but I always think Wayne's World because he's from Wayne's World.
James Hong, no, I watched Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, Big Trouble in
Little China. This pisses me off to no end.
He's really been in a truckload of Hollywood films, as that Asian character.
Yeah, he's always that Asian guy.
Yeah, he's always the Asian guy. And he's in Wayne's World and I love Wayne's World. So, yeah, go back to that. And, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis is awesome in this as, the IRS, the tax inspector. She just does that so well. And
I just remember her walking along.
Yeah, it's just so good. And we know Jamie Lee. We love Jamie Lee from all sorts of films, but she really has a bit of fun in this one, I found. So, and it reminded me, a little bit of showing how funny she can be, because she can be quite funny. She's been in a lot of things.
I do like her in True Lies.
True Lies, yeah.
Where it was like a great Arnold Schwarzenegger comedy.
Yeah.
It was a bit unexpected.
Yes, yeah. No, it's a great. I really enjoyed True Lies, and she's great in that because she sort of plays the, stay-at-home wife.
Yeah, the bit slightly
that doesn't
awkward.
know, that isn't supposed to know anything and doesn't know anything, and then when she does find out, she's got to kind of lean in on that, doesn't she? To kind of pull off some of the things. So, yeah, it's a very interesting film, that one, with that cool scene as well. Where they blow up that Florida bridge or whatever at the end,
Yes.
Yeah, very epic scene out there, yeah. So we do like to break the narrative. We're going to go through some of the narrative parts as we touch on those bits, those main beats that we've been talking about. We do like to pick on them. We'll also mention, which we've been talking about so far, things like the editing and the lighting and the camera and all of those bits and bobs that make up a film. This film in particular, very, very visual. There's lots going on. It's sort of an explosion of colour, this film, in a really good way, I think. Because it symbolically shows the multiverse that we apparently live in. Anyway, we like to break the narrative down into some common elements. We've already mentioned a couple of these guys, Campbell, Schneider, McPhee, Field are just a few of the teachers that sort of really talk about it in the modern era. But of course, we can go right back and figure out the basis of story structure, but this is kind of what we like to pick on. And it is essentially for a feature film. A novel's very similar, that it's this 3-act structure. So we have a first act, a second act, and a third act. What happens in that first act? Sorry, quickly.
First act always is the introduction. We get a bit of an opening image, which will establish... it can establish a lot of things, but often it would be sort of a theme, or it'll give you like a hint on how the world is, and in doing so, you get an idea of how it might be different.
Yep.
We get then an introduction of the characters. We set up the situation of their current life, because the movie's going to show a transformation of some sort, or a journey. It may not necessarily be transformative, but it will be a journey. And so we've got to see where they're starting from, the beginning of the journey. We then have this thing called the catalyst, or the inciting incident. I like to think of that as the time where, as the audience, you realise what the film's about.
Yeah.
So if you came into any of these films without any prior knowledge of what the film was going to be, then, you sort of see some characters doing some things. They're going through every day, like there's Forrest Gump sitting on his bench talking. You kind of go, oh, okay. And then you have the inciting incident, and you go, oh, we're going to learn about, this, or how are they going to get out of this predicament, or there's this, how they're going to deal with this sudden new situation.
Yeah.
And we see a bit of a debate where we live with the main character involved, or the main characters sometimes, but the main character involved, we see them have that same thought of like, oh my God, what am I going to do about this? This thing has happened. It's so different. It's changed. Do I go this way with it, or do I go that way with it?
Yeah.
And they'll choose the way which leads us into the story. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made the film. And that then that's the debate going to breaking into two. And we get into Act 2, which is what?
Well, then now, they've got to make they've had that debate, and they've got to make a decision, which then is this journey that they're going to go on. Whether the journey is physical or not, metaphysical, doesn't matter. They're going on a journey of self-discovery. So that literally could be a journey through the universe, or it could be a journey through their brain. And we essentially, during this bit, have the fun and games. I always love that analogy of the fun and games being the trailer of the film. So it's kind of like the way that we could go, oh, this is what the story is now about. So we need to go over this person's life, or they've the inciting incident was an alien invasion. Now in the fun and games, it's, well, we've got to see what the aliens do in their invasion and what humans do back, you know. We also have kind of the idea of a B story being introduced. So whether that is a love story with another character, or whether that's another character going through a bit of a mini version of what they're going through. Quite often it's the partner, the daughter, the son, the parent, of the protagonist,
yes.
And really they have all those fun and games, the times in the film, and we hit then the midpoint. And the midpoint is basically we're right in the middle of the journey. So the character has come a long way and they've had a lot of fun, but then now the midpoint makes it, it's serious. And so sometimes that can be like, there is no more fun. And in fact, this is really deadly serious. If it's a film that's already been, about serial killers or murdering or, war, for example, the midpoint actually takes it much deeper and darker, And this film, had a really great midpoint where it did go further down the rabbit hole, basically. And that's the good expression to think here as well, as Alice tumbling down the rabbit hole, so she has already gone down the hole. She's seen an alternative universe. Hey, it's a little bit fun. There's tea, there's cake and blah, blah, blah. But then the midpoint is like, oh no, this is now really serious. Like I'm getting further away from my home.
I'm being threatened.
Yeah. And so the stakes get worse for our main character. And there's some great expressions here, like from Blake Scheinert, like the bad guys close in and the all is lost moment. I think in the hero's journey, it's that you go inside the cave,
yes,
and so as humans, we don't like the dark, and that's what this part of the film is all about. It's the dark night of the soul. It's going into the cave when there's already a monster in there. So facing up to those things. If it's an alien invasion, now we're having the one-on-one encounter like in War of the Worlds. Or if it's a film about someone having a mental breakdown, this is literally where they're out of their mind. And maybe the psychologist has strapped them down to a bed and injecting them with drugs, which makes it worse.
And someone's coming along, they're debating whether they're going to lobotomize this person.
That's right. So things are really, really
it's about bad. As bad as you're going to get. You're at the point that zapping the brain. Now we're going to shove a needle in there and destroy the frontal lobe.
Yeah, we're actually going to extract the brain, so there's nothing worse than that, and that's what it means. Or, the character's on the side of the road with no money and it's raining and they've got no way to get out of the situation.
I was waiting for the guy on the road.
That's right. And they kind of, in that really deep, dark place, the protagonist has to figure out what are they going to do now. A film and a story is a series of what ifs in a way and question marks. And so at that point in time, you're about to have a lobotomy. What does this character do to stop the lobotomy, or do they accept the lobotomy? And the lobotomy actually works out in their favor. So that's what this point is, the breaking into three.
I was going to bring up the true lies we were talking about before. I think one of my favorite scenes is where it's sort of one of these dark points where Arnie and his wife, they're tied up, they're strapped up by the bad guys and about to be tortured. And they give him truth serum. Yeah. And so in his truthful state, he says, well, first I'm going to take that there and I'm going to cut myself free. Then I'm going to stab that into your brain. And then I'm going to shoot that guy with his own gun. And and then, of course, that's exactly what he does. Yeah. Because he's telling the truth. Yeah, that's the truth. But anyway, yes, that's a comedy where you're expecting these things. Dark part of the soul. Often there is a death, symbolic or real. Yeah. I always look out for this because particularly if it's a long film and you're getting to the point where you're going, we're going for over 2 hours now. When are we getting it? And then you see the dog die or the girlfriend breaks up and wants a divorce or whatever. Then you go,
it's the death.
That's it. That's the death. We're now about to get to the good part.
Yeah. And so they do, in that bottom bit, they have to make a decision. And that decision, is quite often the plan to, get their life back, get out of the lobotomy, save them, their life and their wife's life, whatever, from terrorists, defeat the alien race, whatever, right? So what happens now?
Well, we go into Act 3, which is called the finale. That's where they have some sort of a course of action where they've gone, I'm going to take action. They gather their resources. And I love the Matrix scene where it says guns, lots of guns. This is literal gathering of resources, and they do that. They strap themselves down. I don't know why they need more than one gun. Apparently you need more than one gun. I don't know. Someone with more gun knowledge could let me know why you want more than one gun.
You need more guns, man.
You need more. You can't have enough guns. You could go Planet Terror, which is right, where she actually has a limb as a gun.
Yeah, that's right.
Why not? And so then they go off and they enact this plan. They face their challenge, their big bad guy, their Act 3, the finale, and it seems to be going okay, but it would be too easy because what we're doing here is we've got to test the hero. We've got to test the journey that something has been learnt or something has happened. And so there's a reversal. They'll be fighting and they're seeming to win, and then there'll be something turns around and says, no, you're actually going to lose.
Yeah.
If something doesn't change, you're going to lose.
You're done.
And that's where we've got to have the final revelation, the epiphany, oh, yes, you're right. I can't just keep doing what I've always done.
Yeah.
I have to change this other thing. And it'll usually be a callback to some wisdom delivered, like the statement of the theme in Act 1. It's a bit of a Chekhov's gun, if you like, where someone will sort of say, you've got to learn to trust yourself and your own intuition.
And of course, at that
and
moment
they say, no, I'm an accountant. I work off data and numbers only. But at their last moment, they'll get that little flash of, yes, I should do this thing. All the statistics say I should do this one thing, but I need to just trust in my love of my son and go this way.
Yes.
And that will win that, and that wins the day, of course.
Yeah.
You might actually have a little bit more difficulty, but it'll win the day because they have learnt that extra thing that they've overcome that barrier. And as the audience, because we're on this journey with them, we should, a really well-made film should not be obvious, the thing that, like, often it is a bit obvious, like, they're going to have to do X, Y, Z. But if it's not that obvious, and they go, oh, yes, of course. And it suddenly clicks into place, like the good M. Night Shyamalan films that he got famous for. Where you got to the end and something happened, you go, oh, of course. And it suddenly makes sense.
Yes.
And then, you have the final image where the day is won, the victory has been had, and now this final image plays off against the opening image, and it will give that sense of closure that, okay, you saw the opening image is how everything is at the start, the beginning of the journey, and the closing image then goes, how does the end compare to the start?
Yeah, after they've gone on that journey.
What does it look like?
What have they gained?
And it generally doesn't look exactly the same.
No, it shouldn't, really.
It looks slightly different. There's something different there. Even sometimes it's just the character at the start who is a little bit serious has a bit of a wink and a smile, and
he has a joke.
Has appreciated something, you know. But that's what gives you the closure. It makes you feel when you finish watching the film to go,
a really obvious example there is you might have the opening is someone alone, and then at the end they're together with someone. You know? So like that's a really obvious, bookend opposite, in scenario. Or if someone is, as you just said, extremely serious at the start of the film, could be a comedy, and then at the end they're the one being a bit of a prankster, because that was the lesson they had to learn, is to lighten their load.
Actually, I really liked it. I said it at the time, but there's that movie Radius we did a few episodes back. It starts a guy lying on his side with his eyes closed, and they open. And he's in the dark. And it ends the same guy lying on his side, but it's in the light, and his eyes are open. And it's just that sort of.
That's cool.
Yeah, he starts off with his eyes closed, but he ends with his eyes open. And oddly enough, he actually. Yeah, it's not really spoiler. You've probably seen this. You're all massive fans of us and have watched every film and along with us. He's alive at the start and he's dead at the end, but he's dead with his eyes open. Anyway, I really liked it. It made me feel complete. Yeah.
So with everything, everywhere, all at once.
Yes,
it's such a mouthful to say. How did this film open, and did that grab your attention?
It opened with a mirror, and I love this because, and if you've been playing along with us for 99 episodes,
that's right.
Actually, some of our earlier episodes are a little bit rough, so maybe you probably want to skip a couple of those. But
go back,
listen to Passengers and The Lobster,
and see what the difference is. They're good films.
They're fantastic films. But this one starts with a mirror, and immediately we know, because as I said, you've been playing along. A mirror represents alternatives or a different opinion or a change.
It is.
So we have a mirror, and it's reflecting.
Reflection.
It's reflecting three people, like a family, presumably, daughter, mother, father, singing karaoke, and it's dark, but there's lights that are flashing. It's a party atmosphere.
Yeah.
And then there's like a door. It's almost like a door closes, ka-junk, and the mirror loses that reflection and the party lights. And then we see a table covered in receipts, and the lighting is a bit drab.
Yep.
And without even, if you didn't know what the film was about, just going off the clue that there's a mirror reflecting, you're sort of seeing it's going to be about alternatives.
Yes.
It's going to be about the juxtaposition of a fun time enjoying the present with your family compared to life's responsibilities.
Yeah, and I mean, we see in this setup scenario, it's a really great example of a setup, isn't it? Because we have this very small, cramped apartment, or, you know, like house, whatever, which is actually also a business.
Yes.
Which we learn in this setup. It's the back of a laundromat, dry cleaning business. But I love this room that she's sitting in. So she's covered in receipts and she's trying to organize it or something, isn't she? You know, so you can see that, you know, this character drowning really in tax receipts.
Oh, she's not happy.
You also, you know, she's, and the whole thing, it's a, you know, is it a hoarder's, you know, wet dream because there's just stuff everywhere? Or is it that they're just living in such a cramped little world, you know? She also displays the trait really quickly with her husband, and then we see it with her daughter when her daughter enters that, you know, she's not really in the present with them. She's off thinking about these other things.
It's always that future. It's always that, oh, what's my father going to think?
Yeah, what's
this New Year's Eve thing going to go? What's this tax going to happen?
Yeah, and we have to do all these things because things, you know, nothing's right, basically. And she's quite panicky and she's anxious and she's stressed. When the husband also enters, you know, to add to the, you know, we talk about problems in setups and stuff. He comes in, we know straight away from the paperwork he wants to talk to her, and he kind of then hides it from her, is that the paperwork is divorce papers. And so, you know, that's a great, you know, like, again, you talk about writing and really getting to despair very quickly. Well, he's a husband and wife, and they're not young, you know, they're in their 50s, and he's going to serve her divorce papers.
Well, it's great because this is all in the first minute?
Well, what I've just probably said is that first 5 minutes. I think,
the first few minutes there, we've gotten all of this stuff,
information,
all this info about the setup, the whole world.
Yeah.
The husband also, he's comes in, he's clearly a bit happy-go-lucky. He's a bit
he's more positive and
positive, chipper. You know, he's sort of making the laughs. And I think at some point she opens a cupboard and there's like googly eyes on the cereal.
Right,
he just puts googly eyes about the place because, that's just his little way of spreading joy.
Yeah, just trying to be a bit more happy, which again irritates her.
It irritates her. She's like, he's serious. Yeah. And you go, well, I don't know, it's not that serious. But she's obviously finds everything very serious.
Yes. Yeah, so within that setup, I think was really great. And we have the daughter come in as well with her partner, female partner, and they have also something to share with her, some news, and the daughter's got to try to muscle up the courage to say it to her mum. And again, that's really great writing because it's subtext. You know, straight away, if you have a daughter or a son that is too afraid to tell the parent something, as an audience, we're like, oh, they don't have a great relationship.
Yeah.
It's a strained relationship.
Yeah.
She's also probably always kind of given her impression that, oh, no, you're not good enough. And this is all stuff that is not really told to us, but as an audience, you're filling in the blanks, aren't you?
Well, you can just see it from the state of the house. Like, there's stuff, it's disorganized.
Yeah.
Like, and you can tell it's, Evelyn thinks that it's her duty to organize everything, and she's not getting she doesn't see the support that she wants, and that's because the other people can't be trusted to do it, and it all comes tumbling out. It's a beautifully filled up world. Like there's no
space.
There's no space. There's no sparsity of information here. No. Every part of it is planned and thought out and tells us so much. Like, the picture is worth 1,000 words.
It is.
Here's 10,000.
Yeah. And I think, is it the husband or the daughter? They're interrupted by a customer. And again, this sort of shows us, Evelyn's way that she deals with customers. And there's the customers kind of, looking for something, and then it turns out the dry cleaning's out the back of the house, and that's where we see the googly eyes again. He's putting the googly eyes on customer thing, and she rips them off and tells him off. Again, feeding this relationship is not in a good space. It's very tense. The daughter at the same time is kind of wanted to say something, but the mum gives her a lecture, straight away off the top, as she's doing 3 or 4 other things at once. She's multitasking. She's running a business. She's running a house.
Her father is coming.
Her father's arriving any moment or whatever it is.
He's not going to be pleased.
No, and when he does arrive, he isn't pleased. And we just get this weird little moment, which to me is the inciting incident, Surrey, which is we see the husband exit, and he goes on the video camera, I think, to collect the customer's dry cleaning. And he does weird things. Like he flips, he jumps, he's really rapid. It's very unusual for a man in his 50s.
Yes.
Even though maybe here there is a bit of a racist thing going on, like he's Asian, is he just doing kung fu or karate?
It's just standard kung fu.
It's a standard thing. But it's done technically off screen, it's done through the video camera footage.
Yes.
The wife Evelyn doesn't see it. No one else seems to react to it.
What I got out of this also, having watched a lot of zombie films and more recently The Last of Us, often it's through security footage that you see the first sort of zombie movements where there'll be a patient, like you see the security footage of the clinic foyer, there's a patient in a wheelchair, and then they'll start twitching and they'll stand up and they'll move around and walk off. But then by the time the doctor or nurse comes back in, the clinic's empty.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's not, but you saw the evidence on the security camera. There was a witness.
Yeah.
Yes, and so this is. I think maybe it's playing off a bit of that sort of. You see something in police dramas where the criminal is there and you're just seeing it through the security camera.
That's it, and they escape.
And they hide a paperclip or something, like for later use.
So it's a little sort of hiding.
It's something the audience sees, but the main character doesn't, and we know it's going to come out. I don't know if this is necessarily in. I think it's the start of the inciting. It's that foreshadowing. It's going to because I think the true the true bit is in the elevator, where that kung fu-y stuff is kind of revealed to us. Yeah. Like the real
revealed
answer.
To the character,
And then suddenly you go, oh, okay, so this is what the film's going to be. Now I understand, that sort of security footage going on. We're going to get this main character, Evelyn, is going to be dragged into this
so they go
strange fight.
Yeah, and I agree. The elevator, because it is also, if you think about storytelling in the elevator, it's now the protagonist's life has changed. Whereas the security camera footage is not, her life doesn't change just because she doesn't see it.
Yeah, that's just
the little teaser for us as the
saying, hey audience, just pay attention.
Pay attention.
There's something coming. There. This is not all bleak.
And anyway, so let's get to that. They go to the IRS and the father's in the wheelchair. They've got their mountain of receipts.
Yes.
And they're in the elevator, and as they're going up, and the whole time she's been kind of nagging and bagging, and the dad is too. The dad's quite negative. Husband's quite chirpy. There's a little scene where I think the husband notices, does he see another couple, and the couple are quite coupley?
Oh, the older couple, yes.
Yeah, they're quite lovely. I think, does the woman help the man or something like that? And he kind of looks lovingly at that, and sort of noticing that his wife doesn't do anything for him. You can see it.
She's lost her love and feeling.
Yeah. It's a great little subtext there. But in this elevator, what does he do? He blinks.
Well, he suddenly goes, changes his posture.
Yeah.
And then he quickly turns and, distracts the gong or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then talks to Evelyn very seriously. He's like, this is, you've got to pay attention to me. This is very important. Something's going to happen. Meet me in the janitor's closet or whatever, and write something down, and hands it to her. And takes Evelyn totally by surprise, because it's like, that's just not what her husband was doing.
Does.
What's his name?
Wayman.
Yes, Wayman. It's not what he does, though. He doesn't act like that. He's always a bit goofy, and then he returns to being a bit goofy again. And what's going on? And of course, they go and talk to Deirdre, and we have that debate where she's thinking about janitor's closet, and Deirdre's going on and explains that the clearly butt plug shaped trophy is one that she won for being a very anal retentive accountant.
And just pause here for a second to say, Jamie Lee Curtis is playing this IRS government official to the T, isn't she? It is and over the years, my younger years at uni, I had to deal with Centrelink here in Australia, and you deal with that government bureaucracy person. She's got the arm brace.
Yes.
She's got the award-winning, butt plugs. She's very clear that they've not delivered on what is required from them as business owners to pay their tax.
Yes.
She spells out the penalties to them. She's not going to give in. She is someone that is a stickler for the rules.
Yeah, and
it just gives that impression.
You also get the impression that she herself has kind of been beaten by the rules.
That's
like
right.
She's given in. She's does. If she ever had a spark of inspiration and fun, it's kind of been driven out of her as well now.
That is. She's great as this character of Deirdre. I found it like it was. I sort of found it hard to watch, as in like pay attention to not only what she was doing in a way in the moments that she was on screen.
And I think if we're going to talk about camera work, and so something here is very close in. Like the framing is the whole family, but it's like Evelyn in the middle, and then her family in the background, kind of hanging around.
Yeah.
And then we got the framing of just Deirdre and her cubicle.
Yes.
And paperwork.
Yeah.
And like you can hear the rest of the office going around.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
But there's nothing else in this world except this cubicle and Evelyn and her mountain of paperwork. And just that explanation that Deirdre's going through of this is just what has to happen.
Yeah.
And this, of course, is great because it leads into that. It gives you that sense of inner monologue. You can see it. She's going, this janitor's closet. Like, what was Wayman going on about? What?
Yeah. She can drown her out a bit.
I have to go and there's like a little message on the paper.
Yeah.
And she ends up excusing herself and going into the janitor's closet, which is where the universe shifts.
Yeah.
She changes and she comes out and there's like, Wayman is different. And they have their first sort of encounter with Jobu, which is Evelyn's daughter, Joy. Yeah. Yes, she's the big bad guy.
She is the big bad guy. She wears fabulous costumes, and in that world, they're all assassins, aren't they? Or something like every single person is an assassin.
Yeah, they're all the bad guys.
They're all bad guys, and they all attack, and it's really quite violent. And Jobu is some sort of super villain. Basically.
The great evil. Evelyn has to save the universe, the multiverse. And it's a lot to heap on someone.
It is totally.
And this is the debate. She sort of decides there. She goes, okay, well, screw it. I could just go back to this audit, or I could see where this travels. Where's this going? Because this new Wayman's kind of far more exciting.
Way more,
decisive and powerful. And I think they have a bit of a fight.
They do.
There's a bit of a fight scene here where he pulls his bum bag off and he swings it around using it as nunchucks. And that's very amusing.
It is, and that really is like the fun and games, really.
Let's just jump into fun and games. Let's see what happens here, and we're going to get various fights and I'm trying to remember all the details because there's so many things.
So many things going on.
There's one of the things, of course, that is revealed during this sequence here because Deirdre becomes possessed by the in that universe, she is a bad guy. They're all bad guys in that first world. And so she's like fighting them, and she suddenly becomes like big, strong, like a wrestler or something, pro wrestler. And it's revealed then to Evelyn that there is this multiverse, and that you're able to tap into the learnings and powers or the abilities of your other selves on these different things. But you have to cause a split in the travel of your current thing. And in order to cause a split, and I love this because it is literally what we're told is that if you want to change your life, you have to change.
Yes.
You've got to do something that makes you a bit uncomfortable. If you're always, not going up on stage to talk and you want to change, you go up on stage and do a presentation in front of people, like it'll be scary and worrisome and all the rest of it, but it will change you.
Yes.
And so, but this is kind of more the case of you've got to do something really out of character.
Yep.
And I think he eats some erasers or something. Yeah. And then what was he drags his fingers on a chalkboard? Like he has.
You got to pick a hair, pluck a hair out of your body or something.
Yeah, off his nose or something like. And the more outrageous it is, the further from your current universe you are able to dip.
Yes.
And so I can't remember all of the ridiculous things you have to do, but so she goes and does one of those things like pokes herself in the eye and finds out that one of her universes, she was actually an excellent martial artist and became a Hong Kong film star as a martial artist.
This moment to me is the same as the Matrix, as in then plugging into the software.
Yeah.
So Neo realizing that, it's like they do the jump scene.
I know
and then
Kung Fu.
Let's do Kung Fu, let's do the programming. He's like, no, Kung Fu, and then suddenly he's a master Kung Fu artist, and that's the same here, because what the trick here as well is that it's fun in games that she's fighting these killers, and now she can do Kung Fu. So, the ordinary Evelyn has this superpower, but it's not like the funny part as an audience. It's sort of like it's almost it's the same in the Matrix. It's like, so they're just kind of playing with it, aren't they? It's like, what would happen if you suddenly knew Kung Fu, and you're in this universe where everyone's fighting you. It's kind of like a computer game in a way.
Yeah, and indeed fun and games. And she goes and has these fights and bashes and bish bash boshes.
There's a cut that Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of in one of them. I think there's a fight with her, and then there's not a fight, and there's the guards, and we sort of see, I think, does something happen to Waymond here, this Alpha Waymond, where he kind of gets knocked down? Then he, again, a little bit like the Matrix, we follow him back to his real world, and he's in a van with two other guys, or two other scientists kind of thing. And to me, again, that felt very Matrixy, as in, he's like, oh, plug me back in, quick. And, and in that, they're revealing, the universe on that tablet thing where you can see, oh, she's straying further than anyone else has ever strayed.
Yes.
And I loved that. And again, it's a little bit like the Matrix, because it's like, oh, hang on.
No one's ever
gone that far that fast.
No one's ever fought an agent for this long, been able to go that fast.
That's right, So, and because she jumps over... it was already a bit of a joke. She jumps over and it's ratatouille, but not ratatouille, is it? What they call it in this? Raccoony.
That's right. It's just,
it had been a joke in it that he had said ratatouille as a movie, and she's like, no, it's ratatouille.
Yes.
And in this alternate universe that she goes to, she's a chef. And one of those kind of Japanese-styled, I believe, chefs, that performs and cooks the food on a big grill in front of you. And there's this other chef, which I think is played by James Hung. And, not James Hung. So Harry Shum Jr. is the teppanyaki. That's what it's called, chef. And in this alternative, Evelyn is a chef. So the thing is, she's really skilled at knives.
Yes.
But I love that idea that suddenly there's this other scene where we're seeing this other chef, and the raccoon is in his hat, like Ratatouille. Like, it's so random, isn't it?
There's a lot of these little things in this film where you come across. And
then at the end, there is a payoff for it, but it's funny. And then she jumps back, and of course now she knows how to use knives,
and she can catch and flick things with a
knife. And then we have this great. I mean, I don't know, because I was pretty entertained in this part of the film, but. Yeah, I mean, it's quite a big action sequence here, isn't there, that goes on for a bit. And, of course, we also have, and maybe this is where your wife started tuning in and out, but we also have that she's fighting those two, and again, we get that kind of nod back to Jamie Lee Curtis's little butt plugs.
Yes.
That, again, to jump the universe and become more upskilled to fight each other, they go to jump on these butt plugs. And it's just such a moment in the film where it's like, Evelyn, you have to jump, you have to learn some, new skill. You're kind of all fighting each other and no one's winning. And they all look at this butt plug, and it's like, they just know straight away.
And it's a classic Hong Kong sequence where it's like someone needs to get a hold of something.
Yeah.
And how many times have we seen Jackie Chan do this where... they go to get the thing, and then Jackie Chan goes, and throws the
tennis ball at
and knocks it aside, and then there's a bit more fighting, and then no one's ever able to get a hold of this thing. There's always someone flicks it, cuts it, kicks it, and moves it about the place.
A dog picks it up and runs it out. And that's what's going on with this butt plug, which is quite funny.
And so at this point here, let me see. We're getting to the midpoint.
Yeah.
At the midpoint. I'm lost my notes.
That's all right. Well, because she does defeat them, doesn't she? And she kind of that's right. It's the daughter. In defeating them in that level, the daughter then That's the midpoint, isn't
Yes.
it? The daughter then is there and the big villain.
Yes, and she just like changes reality on a whim.
Yeah, so she's like, again, like the agents in the Matrix. So this isn't, you can't just fight this person.
Yeah.
No many butt plugs you use and whatever you do, she's not like the others. She can stop reality and change, and she does. You see her change people, don't you, in front of you?
Yes.
In an instant.
From step to step, she's just changes.
Yeah, and again, huge kudos to the visual look here. If you want to see some visual mastery going on, have a look at these scenes, because that is automatically changing costumes that are just incredible, and the makeup. You know, she goes from things like the Mad Hatter to, you know, the latest fashion to, you know, a soldier
to a
just
punk to a
like it's incredible. Like the whole outfit changes, you know, and she explains that, you know, like this is just nothing to her. This is you know, she's been to the whole universe and back in her life, and it's actually boring now. So
it's all a bit meaningless.
It's meaningless, yeah.
She has this bagel. They call it the everything bagel.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Which is, I find it funny because I guess, yeah, it's sort of the layperson. They could have had a fancy sci-fi term for you know, the toroidal singularity or something like that.
But it's the bagel.
But it's the everything bagel.
Yeah, and
She's
I mean,
they'd putting everything into it.
Yeah,
and it just kept growing. And now she wants to go into it. You know, she's going to take the whole world.
Yeah,
because it's all pointless.
Everything.
And this is, of course, where the concern comes in regarding Evelyn.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we thought Evelyn could defeat her, but, you know, there's this problem that what if she becomes like her as well?
Yeah.
We'll actually just have him more powerful. Because Evelyn, it was revealed, was so powerful because she is so bad at, she's failed, this Evelyn has failed everything. She's tried singing and kung fu and cooking and everything. She's tried everything, apparently, and not succeeded. But that means that there is a splinter universe where she did succeed.
Yeah.
And so she has splintered off so many different universes, and thus she has access to so many different skills.
Yeah, and I think it's a good sort of, we're heading into this, you know, the darker night and the soul and the, you know, the bad guys closing in, because her daughter is saying there's no point, Evelyn, going down the path of trying all these different alternate universes. I've done that, and it leads to meaninglessness.
Yes.
And so I'm going to destroy the whole universe. Just come with me. We'll just destroy it together, and we'll see where that takes us.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you're wasting your time. Like
it's the last thing to try.
Yeah, like there's no point. And by doing that, she sort of splinters her off, and we see this is where we see some of those failures that she chose in her life.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we kind of go back, and the story we're shown is that she chose Waymond, and they went to America to set up a life
against
her
the
father's wish. And
yeah.
so that's the reality here, where she's turned out to have a what in her mind is like a dud life, you know. And then we go back to that point, and she doesn't go with Waymond, and she becomes a superstar celebrity, doesn't she? Like an actor, and she's like on the red carpet and well known, and
Waymond's just a fanboy in the crowd.
Waymond is a fan, but he's actually successful.
Yes.
So it's actually saying if they weren't together, they both became successful.
Yes.
Which is quite interesting, actually, isn't it? So it's like they sort of chose love, but they didn't have success, whereas alone they would be successful.
But lonely.
Yeah, that's sort of the point there. And then we also have we also have this reality of sausage fingers. Yeah. You know, so again, it's like and she's in love. Like her lover is Deidre,
and this is where they in the alpha verse. Yeah, Waymond goes, "Wow, no one's ever gone so far back. She actually, you know, crossed evolutionary boundaries."
That's right. Yeah. In reality, there is a reality with sausage fingers. Like at some point in time, sausage fingers come.
Well, they showed that point where the sausage finger ape man used the sloppy sausage fingers to beat the normal fingered ape man to death.
Which is another science fiction film, 2001. That's a little homage to that ape scene, right? It's the same thing, you know. And they have this weird, you know, and it's. I liked that because she's in a relationship with Deidre, you know, and a loving relationship that has some
involves
problems.
sauce and ketchup.
And they like rub, mustard. You know, they start having, I suppose, kind of in a way, started having sex with fingers and sauce.
Tomato sauce and mustard, yeah.
Squirting, it's very visceral. And I've got to say, those costumes were awesome, weren't they? Those gloves or whatever they had. I'd love to know more about how they did that. But, and then they've got problems in their relationship, with the sausage fingers. And yeah, and it's so we're seeing these old alternates. And she denies she doesn't want to go to the bagel, so she comes back to her reality.
Yes.
Is what happens. She comes back to Evelyn, like the Evelyn that's failed. She goes back to what was the safe. And to me, what was this like the safe internally? She's like, well, I'm not the one that's going to save the day here. I don't want to go in the bagel. I just want to go back to being Evelyn, right? Like, so to me, again, it was that kind of, this is the dark night of the soul. Like, she's kind of given up on she went on a little journey, had a little fun. It got really serious. And so then she's backtracked back to her old
she's
thing.
Pulled back. I also like that this really reinforces that there's this stakes of the IRS.
Yeah.
Like foreclosing on the business and closing the only thing going for her.
That's right, which is their
in
business.
This universe where she's been told she's the worst of herself. Like, and the only thing she's got going for her is the fact that she does have a business.
Yeah.
That is, it's enjoyed. She's getting a lot of people coming along to this New Year's Eve party.
Yeah.
But that's going to be taken from her. And I think she's also learned about the divorce at this point.
Yeah. So it's a real culmination that. And it's her giving up, which is also in this universe, she's always given up on things. That's what we've been told, right? Like the father said, oh, you gave up on ballet and you gave up on, you gave in to Wayman and you just gave up on everything, right? And so she gives up on this journey and then she's back in reality and it's like, Deirdre is like, close this business down.
Yeah.
There's not really many people have come to the party.
Yeah.
Not all the customers. She's learnt about the divorce. Her daughter kind of is basically saying...
gay.
Yeah, is gay.
Which doesn't... I don't think...
That's not the problem. The problem
problem.
is that she's not accepting her.
Yeah.
She wants her to be someone else.
Yeah, she wants... just like her father wanted her to be someone else. Yeah.
So she's kind of... Her world is just really terrible. So to me, it's the dark... this is like everything that she's worked for is collapsing.
Well, this also then is leading to that promise of, oh no, she's going to follow the same path as her daughter and... actually make her stronger. And rather than defeating her daughter, they're going to go into the bagel.
Yeah.
And we do get a lovely bit here where we go through all these universes and we get the rock universe, which is one of my favourites because it's just two stones.
Well,
they even went through some cartoon
Yeah, well, I was going to say, so she kind of melts down, doesn't she?
Yes.
In this Evelyn, like she implodes on everyone. And has that moment of like, craziness. And that's where she becomes rocks.
Yeah, she finally becomes rocks and because she's looking for a place where she can connect with her daughter, like to find out really what's going on. And there's just a couple of rocks there and it's just silence for a bit. And then there's like,
text.
Yeah, even we are rocks. And then the one rock starts shuffling over to the other one and her daughter says, you can't do that. You're a rock. Rocks can't move. No, I can if I want to. she shuffles over. Like she's not giving up at this point here. So she's starting to turn the tables.
And I mean, I've got to say, like camera-wise, that it's a montage. It's barely a montage. More like a collage almost. It's just it's not an infinity, but there is just, I don't know, you'd probably have to go slow-mo and count it, but maybe there's like 100 shots of Evelyn in different realities.
It would have taken so long. Some of them were quite ordinary. You can sort of see the ones like, where she's the ballerina, where she's the actress, the chef, but then you also get like one where she's a cartoon.
Yeah, she's a cartoon.
Like somehow, I don't know how that happened in reality, but I guess there was a reality where she's a cartoon. Okay.
Yeah, so you have all of that and the reoccurring ones, so the sausage fingers, the celebrity, the chef, the Evelyn, the super world, so there's kind of like the repetition of those ones. And in this, that's where she is going, oh, I need to change. I need to be someone different, isn't it?
Yeah, and she decides she will. She has that moment of clarity with her daughter.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, I don't want my daughter to end the universe.
Yeah.
That's exciting. And what does she do? She goes, she ends up begging Deirdre. She goes back to the Taxes universe.
Yeah.
And ends up begging Deirdre and has a really impassioned discussion about how this is all she's got and how she's going to give it a shot. She's not going to give up on it.
And she says that Wayman is leaving her.
Yeah.
And that's when Deirdre's like, oh, my husband left me.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like they have a human moment.
And that's when she's got one last chance tomorrow.
Yeah.
At midday, you've got to be there and it's got to work.
Yes.
Yeah, and we do. We get a break into 3 here where Wayman, this is the real Wayman, the original Taxes Wayman. They have that conversation where he confesses, look, like you think that I'm weak, but actually I fight differently. I don't give up on things, and I'm not giving up here. I do it through kindness.
Yeah.
And this is what sort of sparks something in Evelyn, where she goes, yeah, and like we get some imagery of Wayman being kind, like he's putting his googly eyes on things, and she's sort of going, oh,
and he was,
actually,
I think a good father. Like he had moments with Joy.
Good father, and they go on to where are they going to like a shopping mall?
Yeah,
I can't remember why they go to a shopping mall, but it's an important. That's where the bagel is.
Yeah,
of course you get the bagel at the shopping mall. Everyone knows that. But there's going to be this big fight. They're lined up all the way up the staircase to the bagel, and Evelyn's got to get up there. And it's there's normal fighting, but then she's like, no, I'm going to do this differently. I have to change.
Yeah.
And this is the whole thing. And so she pulls out the googly eyes.
Yeah.
Pops one on her forehead, and then she goes and she helps people out. Like uses her ability to swap universes to help the people. Each person she comes across who's the bad, the villain version.
Yeah.
They're essentially a villain version because of something that's happened to them.
Yeah.
And she uses her power to go through these, universes, and she finds, compliments them on their dress choice, and does their hair, and makes them laugh, and she starts doing this kindness fight all the way up to finally the final confrontation where Evelyn and Joy are just like, let's have the final.
And there is that, firing of the bullet scene, which is the same as Neo and Agent Smith.
Yes.
Or the agents, they all fire on Neo and he stops the bullets. It's the same in that kindness fight scene.
Did she turn them into googly eyes and sends them back?
Sends them back. So it's like, and I thought, wow, that's a really cool kind of way of doing it, isn't it? A good little homage to the Matrix.
Yeah, but it's also showing that it's the kindness that is the difference. Like viewing the world kindly and positively. Yeah.
Which was the lesson from Wayman sort of all along.
Yes, his way of fighting the whole time.
Yeah.
What's this with Joy?
She has this battle with Joy.
Yeah, falls back in towards the bagel. She's going to go. Evelyn manages to pluck her out through motherly power.
So, I mean, that's kind of like, well, the kindness worked, but then I think Joy's like, well, I'm going in, stuff here.
Yeah.
And then she's like, well, I'm not letting you go in. So now the final battle is, even though Joy was the villain, it's like, no, the villain can't die. I've got to save you from the baby.
She's not really, the villain is actually the hopelessness. That she's got to fight. Like, Joy is just embodying it. Yeah. And so if she defeats the hopelessness, then she defeats the villain.
Yes. Yeah. And it's about accepting her daughter in that moment, accepting that she's who she is. And
you've dissolved people, turned them into kittens. Yeah. Whatever it is that she's done a couple of things of.
Yeah.
That's okay.
And so she succeeds at that.
She succeeds. And basically we get a victory, don't we?
We get a victory,
which leads to a final image, which isn't all Guns N' Roses.
No.
Or... roses, as the case may be. But we now see the family. They're back at the IRS at the desk.
Sorry. And before that, just before that, in that climax, we have that moment of all those alternative universes working out. So Evelyn and Wayman as the celebrities having a moment.
Oh, that's right. They meet, yes.
They're having the moment of, we could have been together, and maybe we could have even run a laundromat together.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And they don't stay together. He walks away, but it was like we could have had a moment of love, like we were in love.
Yeah.
And then I know that the sausage fingers, they embrace, and they've, you know, worked out their differences. And Raccoonatui is like taken away from the, you know, by the pet inspectors or whatever, and the chef's like, no, and then he tries to run down the road to get it, and you know he can't keep up with the car, and then she goes, well, I'll be the man, and he hops on her head, doesn't he? And he like pulls her hair, and she runs down the road like really fast to the car. Like, it's bizarre, but it's very, very entertaining. And it's a good. What was good about that was that, you know, comparing this film to something like The Matrix, that gave it that sort of comedy edge in a different way, didn't it? It made it quite funny and entertaining in other ways. Yeah, and I think in the violent world, are they sort of the fight is ending kind of thing, is resolving. So you have all those sort of like, all of those resolutions come around in one nice package. You know, it's brilliantly done.
I mean, it solves, and as I said, the final image there at the IRS
as a family. Yeah. The girlfriend drops them off, so it's like, they're all accepting.
Yeah, they're going, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I think, and I can see it as a parent, I'll be going, but you're still going to have kids, right? I want grandchildren. Like, this doesn't stop that, right? You understand that. There's still going to be grandchildren involved. That's my own personal biases there.
That is.
So, kids, do whatever you like, so long as I have grandkids, that's fine. I don't care where you get them from, how you come across them. Grandkids, that's
dangerous. Sorry, yeah, it's very dangerous.
Well, you've got to be accepting, don't you? You know, if you're a kidnapper of babies, well, so be it. It's okay, the baby won't know any different.
So Evelyn has accepted. They go back to the IRS.
The IRS,
and
Deirdre is like barely accepting of the thing, and tells her she's got to do better in the future. You've got to keep proper records.
Yes, yeah.
And you know, you can see that she's going to.
Yeah.
And or maybe it doesn't matter, because she smiles.
Yeah, and her and Wayman had that moment, and everything's okay kind of thing. That's the idea, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it's great.
They're all looking at each other and being nice.
Yeah,
it's lovely.
It is lovely ended. So, you know, it's a film that takes you on that hero's journey, but is embedded in imbued, is a good word, with so many multiverses all in one, and playing off those rules that we have seen in other sci-fi translating universes world, but this one does it in quite a funny and a unique way, which is really interesting.
And it sort of broke it into parts, which is a very I suppose it's an indie trope, isn't it?
Yeah,
where you have everything. Yeah, it's the first part 2 everywhere, part 3 all at once. It's and having the black title card, that's I'm not sure where that comes from exactly. I mean, it comes from the old silent cinemas theatre, but it's definitely, you don't see it in mainstream films. You don't. It's definitely an indie trope. In fact, to bring up that Nope film, it also has the black and white title cards.
Yeah, and I mean, Tarantino quite often does it to break up his acts. Like, he'll break up his acts for you, won't he, and put in those cards. So, yeah, I mean, it does come from the old cinema style, you know, way back when it used to have to change a roll of film and things like that, and they'd actually intermission.
Yes.
My dad, when he used to go to the cinemas, intermission. So yeah, it is. I think it's that old Act 1, Act 2. There's literally a break. You know,
I actually think that some of these films are long enough that you could do with intermissions.
I think you could now. Avatar and the Marvel films and stuff like that could definitely do with
trying
a break.
To sit through a 3-hour film and you're like, you know, I could do with getting up and stretching my legs.
I think probably what they would like to do is charge you a second time. So charge you to go back the second time.
Well, it wouldn't be unfair. I mean, an hour and a half film, you pay the same price as a 3-hour film, but the 3-hour film takes up double the length.
Yeah.
Yeah. No worries.
Anyway, so let us know what you thought about our interpretation of Everything Everywhere All at Once, and how you felt about this plot, and, you know, how did it make you feel, and does it deserve all these awards? It's quite an interesting story, and I think we're going to see the Daniels back this up with something pretty amazing in the next couple of years with another film, I'd say, and probably also Michelle Yeoh as well, being a superstar in her own right.
Yeah, I think she'll be...
she's finally in the limelight as an A-lister, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be difficult. This is the case, as you get saying, with debut musicians, where they spent so long making their first album, and then they get lots of success, and it's like, now you got to make a second album. You have like 6 months to do it in,
and millions of dollars,
because otherwise, the interest is waned. So, how long do filmmakers get after these big wins to be able to pull out another film and go, oh, we got to make this film, and do they have enough time to make it good?
I'll say, even Ben Young, who we had, like he went from, having his film at the Venice Film Festival to flying back to Perth and arriving in Perth, and his Instagram had blown up because he'd had a lot of success at Venice, and then his agent's on the phone saying, you got to go back to the airport and fly to the UK. People want to talk to you. You know what I mean? So I would imagine the Daniels probably would have started having conversations with people. You got to remember, this film kind of came out almost a year ago. So people would have been knocking on their shoulders 6 months ago, even before the Oscar success. They had festival success with this film.
You got to think, as the various agents and studios, when they're whipping out all these Oscars, the first thing, while you're sitting in the audience watching the nomination, who's winning, they would be contacting, saying, get someone, find out who they are talking to, and offer them $20 million for their next film. Just upfront cash payment.
What's the next idea?
We'll take their next idea.
Book them for coffee on Monday morning. Like, we're serious. We can someone at the big studios can just green light things, and be like, well, whatever your next idea is, let's have a chat Monday morning. So I think that would be happening really rapidly, and it might have even been happening before the Oscars. So, I think they'll come back. But films obviously do take, as we know, a lot longer. So a little bit different with the albums, I think, for musicians sometimes. But I think we're going to see... Swiss Army Man, I really enjoyed that film.
This film, pretty good.
I think, is a notch up on that one. And, so where do they go from here? It's exciting times for them. So what about our ladder? What about some other films that you would recommend to an audience to maybe watch around this film, Surrey?
I'm picking up here on one that we haven't mixed in for ever, maybe, is The Lobster.
Oh, yeah.
This was our second film, episode 2. And for those of you who don't recall exactly, it was also sort of as a dark comedy, alternative sort of indie film, with an odd premise.
It is.
Where you've got to find your partner in 30 days or you become an animal. You get turned into an animal. And obviously the main character we're following, he's chosen lobster. If he doesn't find anyone in 30 days, he'll become a lobster. And that's quite it's a bit of a relationship comedy. I found it tremendously amusing. It's not a laugh out loud much, but you do definitely. It's one that you think about and go, that is pretty funny.
Yes, it is one that lingers.
And then you'd watch Everything Everywhere All at Once, and you'd back it up with Gora.
Turkish
Turkish spoof on Sci-Fi. Only because it's following on, but it's a short and sharp film. It is laugh out loud. I just about wheezed myself to death. With my asthma on a couple of the bits there.
Yeah, Gora was great.
It is a bit inappropriate in various places. So if you're expecting a woke tour de force of acceptance, then you're probably going to be a bit disappointed. It's not too bad. Like, it's not atrocious.
No.
It doesn't espouse horrendous ideals, but it is a bit risque.
Yes.
Very funny though. That's the three I'd do. Is you'd be watching those.
Yeah.
And 3 comedies, a bit alternative, exploring similar parts.
For sure. They're a good choice, I reckon. Yep.
How about you? What are you up to?
Well, we mentioned earlier tonight, I thought Gantz, .0, I thought that one would be a good one to mix with it. I also thought Freaks, You're One of Us. I sort of thought that had that bit alternative story structure. It also had kind of a bit of an odd, we weren't in Freaks, You're One of Us. You didn't 100% know what was happening until kind of we were getting later in the story. So I liked that. And also I think taking a premise that we've seen before, but then maybe from the German point of view, it was just a bit of a different narrative point that we came from, and had this surprise ending as well, that film. So, I think that would be an interesting one. I thought Gant Zero had the weirdness and the uniqueness that we see in this film. Yeah. And then even another one, I know we normally just do 3, but Internal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind as well. So I thought, I know that's 4. You went the comedy route. I went more the weird route.
The weird seriously sort of route, yeah. No.
Yeah. So the ones that would just be a bit more abstract and doing some weird stuff. And if you put those 4 films on a weekend rotation, I think you'd be going back to work on Monday in a different headspace.
Weird.
Yeah, you definitely have something to tell the colleagues at work. But let us know what you thought and what other films that you have looked at recently that maybe would be a good one to watch with this one. So what about science? Is this a science fiction film, Surrey?
This is a very science fiction-y film.
Why?
This is exploring a bit of cosmology, and there has been proposals regarding theories of consciousness whereby our consciousness is not necessarily tethered to a particular interpretation, but rather we follow our own universe and we observe other people, but they aren't necessarily in the same universe as us.
Right.
Which leads to this concept of quantum immortality, whereby your consciousness basically follows along the path where it's able to observe, because this is how the universe operates. And, in order for there to be a universe, you must be observing it. And so you just sort of stay in the bodies of the versions of you that live through everything. Until there's no possibility of life any further. And then who knows where you go after that?
Yeah, it's the sliding doors stuff.
It's so. But and this film again, it takes that. What if we were to examine our life, our relationships, our failures, and the things we've given up on, or things that we thought we'd never do. What if we had to confront that and change that?
Yeah.
And of course, there's lots of films that do this.
Yeah.
But this being science fiction, it means that you've taken this concept of multiple dimensions as a way of observing these alternative options, and also a way of confronting these family issues, and then cranked it, of course, up to 11. Because that's usually where science fiction goes in order to make a point, in order to bring that excitement or interest, or to really drive home a point. It's not enough just to have mild subtlety overtones of it. You've got to go, so she's going to have to fight her own daughter through these multiple weird universes, and it's the bizarreness of life is going to be highlighted. So definitely science fiction.
And what type of science do you want to focus on then, or what does this make you think about this?
I was really thinking, I really loved the fact that there's sausages on the fingers, because
can evolution?
It actually put forward this idea that she was able to cross over to a branching universe that had a version of her that evolved from a different branch millions of years in the past.
Yeah,
and so I had a bit of a dive into evolution, the history of it, and evolutionary science. And we're talking about something I didn't actually know. I had a bit of a look at the graph of human ancestors. Well, some of them are ancestors and some of them occurred, I guess the point, at the same time. Yeah, so modern humans, Homo sapiens that we are, we exist at the same time as Neanderthals. Yes. We had a lot of overlap. In fact, there were Neanderthals as early as like 20,000 years ago.
Yep.
Wow. 40,000 years ago. So when Australian Aborigines arrived and first started populating Australia, in like around Germany and France, there were Neanderthals still.
Right.
I wasn't entirely sure of the timelines of this, but I was going, that's quite amazing. Yeah, and not to mention the fact then that there's also Homo heidelbergensis, Heidelberg man, was another branch coexisting with Neanderthals and just the beginnings of Homo sapiens.
Yeah, right.
So there were at that point at least 3 advanced humans of different species.
Yeah.
Like at the moment now, there's only Homo sapiens, there's only one species.
Yeah.
We've managed to successfully divide ourselves up according to fictional characteristics regarding hair and eye color and skin color and things, because we get bored. I think.
Yeah.
We have to find something to do. But there were multiple things, and then also Homo florensis, which is very recently studied. This is the Jakarta Hobbit. So it was an island off of the main island of Indonesia, Flores Island. Yeah, They found evidence of these short guys. They call them the hobbits because they're sort of a pygmy race of human species of humans, Homo florensis. So they were also around up until the past of 10,000 years or so.
Right.
It's unclear exactly when they broke, died out.
Yep.
But you look at the stories of people, and there's stories of little dwarf spirits and stuff, and you go, well, actually, you go back, there were modern humans coming up with stories about these creatures. These other humans didn't look exactly like us. They were shorter, different. Neanderthals were a little bit shorter, a bit stockier. There were also Homo habilis. Was it? Oh, geez. If you're an evolutionary biologist, get in touch with me and let me know.
Correct.
But they were more like they were close to modern humans, but they were a bit more hairy, and their skulls were a bit more ape-like.
Right.
They were like what you'd picture, the classic caveman would look like.
Yeah, right.
And so they were around with modern humans as well. So
right.
you can imagine
people on the same
there
planet.
were a whole bunch of us.
Yeah. And we annihilated them all.
We outlived them. It's unclear as to whether we annihilated them so much as outcompeted them is the term, I guess. Survival of... We adapted better to whatever was
better. That's the
available.
Politically correct way of saying...
Well, if that is sometimes... Because, Darwin put forward this concept, this theory of evolution, which is still more or less the accepted one, which is through natural selection, which is to say that a species has some particular traits to it which allows it to work better and outcompete. It's on average breeds better.
Yeah.
And part of that could be, for example, we are better at defending our territory and obtaining resources.
Yes.
And which is, we killed off a whole bunch of people. But in reality, we actually interbred with some of these. There's trace of DNA of Neanderthal and other people in us. And we did that. But we often say we come from chimps. The reality is we don't. Chimps share a common ancestor with us. Yeah. So you go back about 8 million years, 6 to 8 million years, and there would have been some kind of primate, chimpanzee-ish type thing, and one branch of this would have moved in, and they reckon it happened on the savannas of Africa, basically, as opposed to the jungles of Africa. So in the savannas where the trees grew apart and you got water pooling and so forth, it became advantageous to walk upright. Having your hands free and being able to look around. Whereas if you're still in the jungle, which is where the chimps developed, they're better off not doing that. They still wanted to have grippy feet and hands. And presumably it would have been around this stage that sausage fingers evolved. Clearly in our universe, sausage fingers didn't beat... I would say it's more the 2001 a scene where the normal hands were able to grip the thigh bone and thus beat the sausage fingers down. But it could as easily have been the case that additional intelligence which allowed the tool use didn't evolve as fast as the strength and numbness of the sausages, which would allow them to outcompete for resources and become the dominant species. I'm still not sure how they'd use those sausages for anything. No. Like they had trouble undoing their buttons, and they couldn't. Anyway,
They did show that they used their feet to do other things, but she opened a beer bottle or something, didn't she? She was
using her feet for something.
So they use your feet, which is again you would right? So
I guess so. Yeah, but more recently, there's a study of what's called epigenetics. So the Darwin theory was posited without knowledge of genetics. The DNA was not a thing they knew about. It was just through observation, through fossil record. And as we've gone along, we've just found more evidence of it. Like we found proto-humans about the place, and we found bits of DNA from earlier animals which shows a relationship to the DNA we have now. So we're seeing this genetics.
Yeah.
But more recently, we've got this interesting study of epigenetics, which is, so we know about, for example, you hit by a bit of ionizing radiation from UV light or X-rays or just, that's probably all that naturally happens, really, gamma rays from space. And it will actually damage or alter your DNA, which will produce a mutation. So your children might come out a little bit taller or a little bit shorter or heavier or better at storing fat or building muscle or who knows, any number of things.
Or shooting webs out of your
Or shooting
wrists.
webs from their wrists, which, I tried to go for that myself, and I shot my nuts with so much fucking X-rays and radiation. Right. Sorry, kids. Would explain a few things. But this epigenetics is the alteration of gene expression without altering the DNA itself. So you have a given bit of DNA, and it has within it a whole heap of which might call potential. There's the ability to produce any number of attributes or traits within a creature. If you expose that creature then to various stimuli, stresses, it could be good food, bad food, smoke, stress, exercise, whatever, different parts of the DNA get activated. So different hormones come along and proteins, latch on and make different parts of your DNA active.
Okay.
It's always been there, but they're not doing anything. And this is called gene expression, where now it starts happening. So this is the case, for example, where you're fine until you have kids. You have an increase in stress from kids, your hair starts going grey. You always had the opportunity to have grey hair. And indeed, as you get older, you probably will have grey hair. But the stress from the kids has now activated that part. And that's really interesting, because what they're showing there's things like, diabetes type 2, heart disease, some cancers and so forth can be epigenetically induced or prevented. It can also go down to as far down as your grandchildren. So they found, for example, people who are, and it's through the male lines, the Y chromosome carries epigenetic information.
Right.
So if the man donor, the Y chromosome donor, is probably the better way, because in fact there are some people who are born physically resembling what would be female, female genitalia and so forth, but actually carry a Y chromosome.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting. So, the whole argument about men are X and Y and women are X, not true, really.
So 100%.
There's a lot of variation here. But the Y chromosome carries the epigenetics.
Right.
And so they had a look, for example, at Civil War survivors in the United States. They had fairly good records of military service and so forth, and prisoners who got captured and in prisoner of war camps and the subsequent release. And they're having a look, and they looked at the men who were in the worst of the prison war camps had an 11% more death. They died earlier, 11% more earlier, I'm not sure, of cancer and heart disease primarily. Their children also, even though their conditions, they didn't suffer that stress anymore, they're actually probably quite well off, also died earlier. Not as much, but they still had a higher rate. And their grandchildren had an effect, not a significant, not a statistically significant, but there's still a noticeable effect.
Wow.
So that stress that they had from the prison war camps was handed down. There's this transmitted trauma. There was an experiment done, and I can't remember the guys who did it. Terribly cruel. Not really. Maybe. So they got a bunch of rats, and they introduced a smell of, I think it's like cherry blossom or something should be nice, and then they give them a little zap. Nothing too bad, but a bit of a stress, as they do, and they conditioned this cherry blossom smell until the point where they give them the smell, and then they would experience stress. And then, of course, they checked out their children. Give them the smell, their stress levels also went up.
Wow.
So, this passing male of rats, of course, or the Y-carrying rats, and we can't really ask the rats whether they feel masculine or not, so we just have to call them male rats because that's what we call them. So it's a very fascinating little bit of research, I think, which I think it does sort of tend to show that your choices you make prior to having kids can in fact affect your sons and your grandsons.
Yeah,
which is it made when I was reading this, I was thinking back, what was I doing? In what condition was I when I had those children?
Yeah.
Yes, because I'm looking at my son going, oh, I wonder if, well, actually I ran my first marathon. No, I ran my first marathon. So I actually ran a marathon just before we got pregnant with Elliot, and ran my second marathon while my wife was pregnant with Elliot. So I was extremely fit. I could run not super fast, but very consistently for like 4 hours or 5 hours at a go. So much so when I went in for my vasectomy, they put the heart rate monitor up onto me, and my resting heart rate was like 40, which is really low, and they took it off and manually checked my heart rate because I won't trust the machine there. And then they asked me questions about that. Do I have any conditions? And I said, well, I was actually at the time I was training for my third marathon, but injury, my bloody leg. I can't really run properly anymore now, so be careful about running marathons.
Yes,
they hurt. But so I'm wondering now if that shouldn't have affected my daughter, because unless she has a Y chromosome, I don't know. Haven't tested it but probably doesn't. But my son, it'd be interesting to see if he has any, effect from that.
Yeah.
He could be more naturally enduring.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Could be.
Or it could affect him some other way.
Yeah.
It might have stunted his growth.
Maybe.
If it has, I won't let him listen to this episode.
If it has, don't run marathons is what you're telling people out there if they want to have children.
Yes.
Might be the case.
Or just wait to find out. Maybe my son will be really good, and so then the advice would be run. Definitely do
That's
it.
right, yeah.
Do by all means.
Yeah.
But anyway, look after yourself, I guess, is the best thing I can say.
Definitely. So ultimately, sausage fingers could happen.
Ultimately, sausage fingers is not only plausible, it's almost inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just would have
first?
About 8 million
movie
years,
or the sausage fingers?
8 million years ago, if we hadn't picked up that femur a la 2001 and beaten the sausage fingers to death, it could be a very different and far messier present day.
It could be. Okay, so that brings us to the end of episode 99. Think about giving us a review, sharing us around with your friends, sending a bit of love our way. You can do that, on our socials, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can give us a tick or a star or, write a review, or as I said, just share it to your mates is always great ways to support us. You can find us on spacebrains.com.au. You can get in touch with us via Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Ask questions, send us your responses, let us know how we're going and any maybe future episodes you'd like to listen to us. Also, think about heading up and buying a ticket if you can. Or again, sharing that information to people you know and love.
Oh, yeah, look, the workshop's there. Anyone that you know who likes to maybe write or curious about podcasts.
Yeah, or filmmaking.
And then, and definitely come along to the screening to hear about the filmmaking and see some amazing films.
Yeah, we can't wait. So again, those tickets can be found on our website or through Humanitix. You can just search for Spacebrains. If you can't find it, send us a message. We'll help you out.
Give me a call. My number is...
That's right. And being episode 99, I believe if my maths are right, next week will be episode 100.
Hang on, let me check. 99 plus 1. Yep, that's 100. And I was quite excited when we had the list of options.
Yes.
Because I'm quite a fan of the Rick and Morty cartoon. Not necessarily one of the creators, apparently. He's a bit dodge. But... in that they have the Cronenberg universe.
They do,
where all of they turn inside out all the time and they're gross. And so we're going to do The Fly.
The Fly.
Which is gross.
It is gross.
But it has got Goldblum in it.
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff is in there. So
character.
We love the films he's in, like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, he's a great actor. And I mean, this is a film as well that I was a bit young when it came out, but I kind of got some, cheeky glimpses at it as a kid and realising it's looking pretty disturbing. And then it is one that I think I watched at about the age of 12, something like that, 12 or 13. So a few years after it'd been out. And it's a gross out, fantastic horror. It was perfect for the age I was at. I've never gone back and watched it again. So
I haven't either. I've seen it once.
I'm quite excited to, and I know there's a sequel and I saw the sequel, but I'm quite excited that when we've decided this one to actually go back and watch it because, it has been quite some time for me, but I do remember parts of it. And so it's going to be interesting whether it's stood the test of time or, whether it's even better because of that. But, I'm excited. So The Fly, episode 100.
Fly, 1983?
Yeah, or 4.
Something like that.
Something
the
like
1980s version, not the old 1950s version.
Yeah, don't go that far back. So, the one with Jeff Goldblum. That's the one we'll be doing. So go check it out. We're going to watch it. And then that way you're ready to listen to our next episode of Spacebrains.
See ya.
Bye.